the Marathon Lead Generation and Conversion class. And what I want to do today is give you guys a really good overview of what we do. Obviously, the goal is for you to invest in the class at the end of today's promo. So I'd like to give you enough information to make that decision. What I'm going to do, instead of giving you just a sales pitch, I'm going to give you a webinar. I'm going to give you 30 minutes of free information. If you like the information and don't want to sign up, then I obviously haven't done a good enough job to sell you on it. And if you think you like it, I promise you I've got another 5 hours of material lined up behind that. So let's get started. Let's jump right in. And if you have questions, I'm going to try to get the questions towards the end. So that's me. I'm Richard. I've been at Keller Williams for 10.5 years. In real estate, next week will be my 14th year starting out. I am a training junkie. You know, my story, my background story is one of mistakes. One of the reasons I love teaching is I've made a lot of mistakes, and I've learned from those mistakes. So what I've failed at doing early in my career is I failed at listening to other people, and I failed at training. And what I do now is I do a lot of training, and I do a lot of learning, and I listen to other people now. And my business has exploded because of that. In 13 full years, I've done $500 million in sales. I've done $220 million in the last 27 months. So about half of my production came in about 17% of my time in real estate. And that's coincided with me doing a lot of training. So that's why I love training. I run a 17-person team. We did $100 million in sales each of the last 2 years. The number of people on the team is not important. It's the number of sales and the profit. And so we did about 300 sales, 320 sales here in Los Angeles last 2 years. Here's some other things that I do. I'm a rental property owner, market center investor, MAPS group coach, working on becoming an OP. I have a construction business, and I've added 2 people in the last week, so I'm up to 127 people in my profit share tree. And the reason I mention that is that all of those things start with lead generation, right? Every opportunity I have or I've received is not because someone has called me and said, Richard, here's opportunity. It's because I've called them and said, where is the opportunity? Where can I find opportunity? What do you have available? So by making myself available to people, by generating leads and converting leads into appointments, I found opportunity. Just earlier this week, I was dialing team leaders in the area looking for opportunity of agents they might want to add to my team. And in having a conversation with one of those team leaders, he told me about an ownership opportunity that was coming up. So it was a case of me generating leads and an opportunity arising because of that, not that I just sort of lucked into an opportunity. I mention that very explicitly because everything starts with lead generation and conversion, and then, of course, everything stops without lead generation and conversion. If you are not generating and converting leads constantly, your business will wither. You are in a pipeline business. We are all in a pipeline business. We are all constantly having to obtain and nurture our leads and get our leads into a closing and then get them back into a pipeline for the next time. So here's what I'm going to do today. I'm very action item oriented, and the reason I am is because I know from my KPA and from my DISC and my AVA, if you've been around long enough to remember that, is that I'm very low vector 3. I'm not very good at details, and so I consciously work very hard to work at details. And so one of the things I do is I try to make every class I teach, whether it's this promo webinar, a regular webinar, the live class, my weekly trainings, I try to make an action item list. So we're very clear, this is what you're going to learn over the next 25 minutes or so. You're going to learn how to increase your calls, increase the number of outbound dials and the quality of outbound dials. I'm going to teach you to increase the quality of your scripting, which will increase your conversion. And then most importantly, I'm going to teach you how to look at your mindset. Now, I'm not going to be able to make huge strides on mindset. That's the vaguest of all of them. But I want your mindset to really change. I want you to think of things a little differently. And I think I can solve some of the problems you're having. A lot of problems I run into are people have call reluctance. They don't like making calls. They don't want to make the next call. They're not tracking their numbers. They don't see the value. They're not practicing their scripts. They don't see the value. So you can make as many phone calls as you want, but unless you're doing it purposefully and unless you're learning your scripts purposefully, you're not going to get to the highest level. Personally, I'm very focused on my goals. I'm very focused on outcome, and I know that each individual activity I take will lead to the next success for me. All right, so here's the challenge. Oops. Sorry about that. Here's the challenge. The challenge is I want you to sit down after this call, whether it's today or tomorrow, and I want you to make calls for an hour straight, and I want you to track your numbers. I know from experience most people don't track their numbers, and that's not the right way to do it. Everyone on my team tracks their numbers. We use a shareable Google Docs spreadsheet to track their numbers, and then we obtain data from that to pinpoint areas for improvement. So the first step is to track activity, track how many calls you make. From our experience, most agents are making 12 to 16 manual dials an hour. It's not good enough. Our agents are making 25 dials an hour by hand. All of our agents, by the way, are now on Autodialers, and we do an Autodialer training within the webinar. So that means we're going to sit down and train you on how to use an Autodialer at the highest level, and I'd like for all of you to be using an Autodialer by the end of this webinar series. The next thing I want you to look at is I want you to look at how many appointments you're making. We're in the appointment business. We're in the business of setting face-to-face appointments with people. If we stop setting face-to-face appointments with people, we're going to lose out on our business. We can be replaced by computers. And I badly don't want to see that happen. And I'm sure you feel the same way. So I want you to focus on making face-to-face appointments. So we think that our agents should be making at least 3 appointments every day. So here we're going to do a couple quick tips on how to do a higher number of calls in any period of calling that you're doing. And feel free to take notes. The webinar will be shared later if you want to go back to it. But I would love if you actually took some of these notes and really tried to implement them. And even if you think you're doing it, there's always a way to do it better. And that's for myself as well. So the first thing I do before I make any phone calls is I handle all my business. I do my check-ins on my escrows. I try to take care of any fires that are burning at the time, and then I turn everything off for an hour, right? Turn off the Facebook, no social calls, everything's just work. I'm going to dial. I'm not going to have any distractions. I'm also going to have at least 25 numbers ready. A big challenge people have, they don't have their numbers ready. They spend 10 minutes of the hour fumbling around for numbers, right? Then the next key is if you're manually dialing, you can't stop, right? You have to keep the momentum going. And by forcing yourself to track your numbers, you're going to feel accountable to that, and it's going to reduce the amount of lag time that you have. Now, if you're using an Autodialer, it solves all of these problems, right? It just forces you to keep going, and there's no stopping. As soon as you hang up with one, the next number is dialing. So our agents have more than doubled their outbound call volume using the Autodialer. Now, when we talk about mindset, what I want to talk about is thinking about what each call makes. Each call is not a call to some guy who contacted you on the website a year ago who's a low-quality lead. Each call is one step closer to your big goal, your big why. And I want you to understand very clearly that if you're not making those calls, you're stealing money from yourself, right? You're not achieving your full potential, and you're cheating yourself. And there's no point in doing anything else unless you're able to sit down and make all those calls like you should be doing. Right, so let me know if that's not clear. But the idea is that if you're doing 45 calls instead of 50, you're cutting out not just 5 calls, you're cutting out 25 calls a week. And you're cutting out a big number of calls over the end of the year, and it's going to reduce the outcome of what you're going to achieve at the end of the year. And ultimately, that will make it hard for you to get to where you want to be. Now, what I want to show you is that if I can increase your call volume by just a little bit, 10 more calls a day, 2 times a day, 2 one-hour calling blocks, 5 times a week, 50 weeks a year, I can show you how to make 5,000 more calls every year. Now, my question to you is, can you make more money making 5,000 more calls, right? So don't look at that just as a sales pitch. Really critically think, If you can make those calls, I'm not asking you to work any more time. I'm asking you to work smarter. So a lot of times we're not doing this. That goes for me as well. I'm not immune to this. Every once in a while I have to, resort what I'm doing. I have to really think about what I'm doing differently. I have to refocus my attention. And the reason ultimately why we don't do this, we don't have big goals, right? We don't see the connection between 1 out of 25,000 calls to our big goal. And that big goal might be vacation, it might be building a team, it might be a house, it might be paying for college, or whatever it is, doesn't matter. If we're not seeing the connection, it's a problem. So I came up with another way to look at it, right? If you can't really think about, well, this call is just 1 out of 25,000 I'll make so I can finally get the down payment for my house or buy a rental property or whatever that goal is, I just came up with the idea that each call was worth $100 to me. And I thought about it. I originally thought about it as $40, and then I didn't think 40 sounded cool enough. So I said, every call I make is worth $100. I firmly believe that every day when I sit down and I make my 50 dials, that I'm going to make $5,000 from those calls. And everyone on my team has a number, and they have it posted at their workstation, that they understand that every call they make is worth money. And so instead of trying to think, well, this is just one tiny grain of sand towards my big goal, I want you to think of your call as worth a finite dollar value. And that'll help you get those last 4 calls done, I promise you that. Because those last 4 calls for me are worth $400. It's good money. All right, I'll do some questions. So Michelle asks, is there a time of day I found best for calling? And the answer is no. I've never seen any data or information that identified a certain time of day as better for phone calls. We do phone calls in the morning, and we also have a weekly afternoon call time as a team. We have found good data that more emails are opened in the morning and more emails are opened on Monday morning than any other day. But phone calls, there's no consistent data. Call at different times of the day to catch people who may not be available just in one time. But overall, no conclusion. So if you have questions, you can pop them in the question box, and I'll try to either work them into the topic or I'll answer them at the end. So if you're making your calls, right, you've increased your call volume, what do you do next, right? You have to start improving your conversion. And the way to improve your conversion is to improve your scripting, right? If you want to be a better free throw shooter, you got to practice free throws. You can't just take free throws, and definitely you have to actually practice what you're doing. So we look at scripting in a different way, right? You can go find scripts online. There's free scripts online on everyone, on YouTube all over, free real estate scripts. You can do a Google search. There's an infinite number. The scripts are not the key, right? The trick is not the scripts. The trick is how to work the scripts. And no one else teaches this that I've seen. I want you to critically think about what you're doing on each phone call, right? What's the goal for each phone call? Now, the goal for each phone call is to make an appointment, right? Your goal is to set a face-to-face appointment. Every time I pick up the phone, my goal is to do a face-to-face appointment. My goal is not to do a free buyer meeting over the phone. I see a lot of new agents coming in, and they spend 30 minutes on the phone with one person. That's not the point. That's a meeting. Do it face-to-face. Right? We have to develop those relationships with our clients. My goal is to get a call made and get off the call in 3 minutes or less with an appointment, or a intermediate step to an appointment. So what I will do is, instead of asking the buyer, do you want to meet with me? Can we meet? Would you like to meet? Those are passive questions, right? We're the highly paid professional. We tell people how to do it. We tell people this is how you're going to work the system. This is how you're going to buy a home. The first step is for you to talk to a lender and get pre-approved, and then I'll meet with you, and then we can tour homes. How does that sound? And people will agree with you because you sound confident and you are a professional, and they've come to you for professional advice. Now, this may not seem like a big variation to you, but I promise you, by dictating the pace of the script, by dictating the activity and the questions within the scripting, you are going to control the conversation, and you're going to set more appointments. And if you increase your conversion rate just a few points, you're talking about additional closings, right? A couple extra appointments will get you an extra closing. Now, if we can do that over an enormous volume of calls, we can talk about a large number of closings. right? So I'm not ever going to ask a buyer permission to meet with them. I'm not going to ask them permission to show them a home. I'm going to tell them we're going to look at homes. We're going to see these 3 homes today. We're going to meet as soon as you get pre-approved, and then I'll take you out to tour homes, right? Because our first step is to do a buyer meeting. So in call 3, we go over the steps to get to a buyer meeting for a buyer contract. We call it a buyer broker. Here in California, you may have a different term, effectively a buyer listing agreement. Right? So we want to get to the buyer. We want to tell them what we're doing. Now here's the opposite script for a seller. Right? So when the seller calls you, they have questions about selling their home, or if you call them, you're cold dialing, you're circle dialing, you contact them, you want to know what their plans are, what they want to do. First, we're going to train you to ask questions. We're going to train you to break apart objections. But the first step is you have to make that appointment. So our process on the seller side is to do a quick intake, make the appointment, and then backwards qualify the prospect. So let me break that down for you. I'll have a brief rapport building session. I'll then set an appointment, and the way I set the appointment, here's the key. The best thing for me to do is to come to your home and give you a personalized evaluation. Is Tuesday or Wednesday better? Now listen to that scripting. It doesn't sound different on the face, which is the point. The difference in the script here is that I'm telling them I'm going to come over, and the question I'm asking is not whether or not I should come over, it's which day should I come over, right? So never again ask if you can come over or if they want you to come. Would you like me to come over to look at your home? No, they do. That's why you're on the phone. If they weren't interested, they wouldn't have called or they would have hung up by now. Then after we make the appointment, we're going to learn how to qualify them. And we may have to reset the appointment if the qualification finds out that they're not ready. And then here's the last one. So we'll do a whole hour call on seller scripting for appointments, and we'll do a whole hour on buyer scripting for buyer appointments. They're very similar. There's a little bit of different questioning, but it's the same idea that we're dictating the appointment, and we have some language we're going to use to control that conversation. Now here's one for buyers, right? So buyer calls, hey, show me this one house. Great, so we'll take a look at that house that you called on, right? And then I'll show you a couple more right after, which time is best, right? Too often I hear agents passively making appointments or asking for appointments. What you have to understand is that if you put the client in the driver's seat, they're going to take control. And I'm not saying your clients aren't the boss. I'm not saying that we're not doing everything we can to produce a great result for them. If you sound passive, they're going to find another agent. Imagine if you went to the doctor and the doctor said, well, gee, Richard, what do you think we should do here? Or do you want to come in maybe later this week or next week, or you let me know? No, you call the doctor, they say, come in, here's what we're going to do. Right? It's all on their terms. We want to create that same atmosphere with our clients. They're coming to us for professional advice. Act like a professional and tell them what the advice is. They're still not going to listen to you most of the time, but they will actually respond better, and you'll have a higher conversion this way. All right, so does that make sense how that's going to increase conversion? Now, Raphael asked about autodialers. So we don't have any preference. We use Mojo. They're probably just the same as LandVoice. I know there's a bunch of others. I think Vulcan has one. We just started with Mojo. Everyone on the team liked it. We had no complaints, so we stuck with it. So we'll give you a training on Mojo Dialer, but they all use the same general technology. And we use all single-line dialers. We don't do on the team. We don't focus on cold and circle dialers. So we don't focus on the multi-lines. But if you are doing those, you'll need to get a multi-line dialer, and our training will cover that. And Sherry asked about scripts for commercial. So Sherry, what I'm going to show you, we have 2 hours of script calls within the 5-hour session. The scripts are generalized, right? You can take the lessons I'm going to give you. I'm going to teach you more mechanical scripting, right? This idea of setting an appointment versus asking for an appointment. The idea of asking questions to control the conversation. Everything that we teach is going to work not only for setting appointments for buyers or sellers, residential or commercial. It's going to work in dealing with your clients day to day. It's going to work in dealing with people who work for you day to day. It's going to change the way you communicate with people. And then last question, I'll get back to it. Chandler asked about Mojo account. We have 3 Mojo accounts for 5 agents, and they rotate. All right, so I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of the class, and then I'm also going to jump into what we do as far as mindset. We're going to focus on first increasing outbound call volume. Now, keep in mind that the idea behind scripting and calling is all part of a process, right? The first activity that you do in real estate is make a phone call, right? The next thing you do is set an appointment. Then you convert that appointment to a contract to a showing, either a buyer or a listing to an escrow to a closing. Marathon Lead Generation 1, this is the first half of the series, covers everything from first contact to setting the appointment. The next class that we're working on will go from contract to escrow. So we'll be focusing on how to set appointments and get to appointment, right? The first thing we have to do is increase your outbound call volume, either by increasing your skills as a manual dialer or training you how to use an auto dialer. We're going to improve your conversion rate for appointments, and what I want to show you is that even a small percentage change in conversion is a big difference in your business, and I aim to give you a very sizable change in conversion rate. We're going to work on habits that work for all facets of your business. That's not only the scripting, but we're going to talk a lot about systems and workflow. So in the first call, we're going to cover habits, workflow, getting ready, some mindset stuff. In the second call, we'll talk about follow-up systems, how and when and how often and how to contact your potential client. So we have written systems, and we'll give them all to you in writing. And those written systems will allow you to set a plan to contact your clients and a conversion plan that will actually work. Every week, we have a new client who calls us after years of being dormant. And every month we have a closing on a 3 or 4, 5, 8, 10-year-old lead. So I'll show you how we're doing that. Everything that we do is easily replicable, right? There's nothing I do that's magical. Everything I do is learned from other agents, learned from our own experiences doing this for 13 years. And we've just put it together in a new way, right? So everything we do, you can copy. There's nothing I do that's proprietary or special. It's just we execute at a high level. And we're very focused on the minutia. We're very focused on the details. So we're going to teach you how to stop wasting time with poor lead conversion. One of the things we talk about is if you do an open house, you spend 5 hours of your Sunday getting those leads, and then most people throw those leads away. So we're going to work on open house follow-up programs. We're going to work on eliminating bad leads from your cycle, and we're going to work on moving them to more efficient automated follow-up systems. And everything we do is available to you. So anything that we do in this process, we'll put in the Facebook group, we'll share on the Basecamp, and I'm available for questions either through the webinar or through the Facebook group to answer all the same things. So there's the class list. Those are the 5 classes. The last class we didn't talk much about. We do an auto dialer training. We're going to walk you through step-by-step how to use an auto dialer at a high level. My agent, Aaron, will be leading that class, and you'll be able to ask her questions directly. We'll talk about mindset, and then the last thing we haven't covered is value proposition. I'm going to train you how to write a good value proposition so you have a good sales pitch, right? How many of you have a quality elevator pitch that if I called on you and said, hey, why should I hire you as an agent, that you would have a really solid answer, right? So we're going to work on that because that comes into play a lot on the phone. So a couple things that we're offering. I hope that you've seen some value here. I really appreciate your time and your patience today. If you liked it, I'd love for you to sign up. If you sign up in the next couple hours by the end of business today, we're going to get you the PDF script card. Everyone on my team uses a 2-sided PDF script card. They laminate it. We'll send you the PDF. You can laminate it. And it has all your basic objections and objection handles. We'll also have a bonus scripting webinar. 2 agents on my team lead a scripting webinar as a bonus. One of them has been in business for 10 months and is one of the best scripters on my team because she follows all the directions. The nice thing about new agents is they have no bad habits you have to break. They just follow directions. And then the last thing I'll tell you is people talk about, it's an investment. It is an investment. It's $149 for the class, and I would love for you guys to do it. Last year, we spent almost $20,000 as a team on training. And in addition to that, we have a full-time training director and have our agents go through many of the KW training programs. So we have our agents at Family Reunion, Mega Camp, in coaching, and on group calls. So I believe the training is the absolute best investment you can make, better than a Zillow zip code, better than almost anything for your business. There's the information on the class. I'll take a couple more questions in a few more minutes. I want to thank you guys again for being patient. We will have everything worked out by Friday morning for the webinars. It's 5 one-hour webinars starting Friday, 9 Pacific, 11 Central, noon Eastern. All the webinars are recorded so that you can listen to them later on if you can't make it. There's a Facebook group for questions, although there is live question and answer during the webinar. And I'm available to answer those questions through Facebook as well. You can also go to Marathon Conversion. The website Marathon Conversion will take you right to that link. So it's a $149 investment, and I'd love to have you guys on. I'll also answer a couple more questions. If you've already signed up, I'm going to put up the PDF card in the Facebook group for you guys too. And Jeanette asked about phone numbers. Yeah, we'll talk about how to generate leads. We'll talk about sources of leads in the first call, how we source leads, how we find business. And a lot of the scripting we use is really talking about how do you create a lead from meeting someone, right? How do you meet someone and generate them into a lead? So once again, a quick overview. Thank you for your time today, guys. This class is going to take you all the way from meeting people, converting them to a MET in your database, converting those people to appointments. It's the absolute foundation of your business. I've had new agents on the class who loved it. I've had training directors, team leaders, productivity coaches. I've had mega agents who sell more homes than me. They've all learned something from it. I promise you I can help you learn something, and I guarantee you that if you take the class and implement the systems that I teach you, that you're going to improve your business. So it's marathonconversion.com, and I will be really excited to have you on there. We're starting Friday morning. You can go to marathonconversion.com to sign up, and we'll get you those 2 bonuses. So thank you very much, guys. And if there's any other questions, I'll just send you a private answer.